very good friend, Dr. Worcester, and we have a member of the White House on with us right now, Department of Ed in charge of HBCUs, a good friend of ours, Dr. Dietra Trent. What's going on?
Dr.
Welcome to the
Trent.
show. How are you?
Thank you. It's so great to be with you guys again and to see you. And you can call me Dietra because you met me as Dietra. So please refer to me as Dietra, and I'm going to refer to you as Nathaniel and Eric.
You got
I
it.
like it. I like it. Actually, you can call me Nathan.
I'll call you Nathan. That's right.
Call me. You can even call me Nate Dog if you want to call me. You can call me whatever.
No one's doing that. He's been trying for years, Dietra. It doesn't catch.
So with the community connection, we try to find guests that we want to learn from and that we have somewhat of a connection with. And Dr. Worcester and I, when we were talking about outstanding guests to have on this podcast, you were one of our top list candidates to have. We had this amazing experience in China, of all places. We had this wonderful opportunity to explore this great country, China, and learn from each other. And you're from Virginia. You've been doing some amazing things, and we're like, man. And then we heard that you're in the White House. It's like, what's going on with that? That's outstanding. So before we get into all these questions, Dietra, just tell us a little bit about your journey and how you went from schoolhouse to college to White House. What's going on? So just share a little bit of your story with us.
I'd love to do that. Let me just ask you guys, did you guys realize that we were in China 3 months before COVID hit?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember Dr. Worcester and I were looking at each other and going, isn't it interesting how so many people wear masks in China?
Yeah.
Right.
And didn't even think of it.
And I thought it was because of and I said it's because of all of the smoke
smog,
and
the air quality.
But then, it was really interesting because when I got back, I remember around September, so it probably wasn't, but around September timeframe, I started coughing. Ooh. And I had this cough for a month and a half. And I went to the doctor. They were like, there's nothing going on with you. But I swear to you guys, I probably had COVID and I didn't.
You're patient zero? Is that what you're saying? Right here?
Yeah. You're the typhoid Mary. Oh my gosh.
That's where it started.
Right here on the Community Connection. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first.
Breaking news.
That was breaking news.
Here. But anyway, so that was
it was crazy.
Great time together. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I as you all know, we all have been in education for some time. I come from a family of educators. My grandmother was also a teacher. She taught 40 years in Virginia public schools. And she was also my first grade teacher. So she was probably one of the most influential people, if not the most influential person in my life. I left when I left high school, which was in Halifax, Virginia, Southside Virginia. I attended Hampton University. I will tell you that I didn't know a lot about college because I was the first generation.
Oh, right.
And I had an opportunity to actually visit one of my girlfriends who was going to school at Hampton. And I went on that campus, and it is such a beautiful campus, as you guys can see behind me.
Yeah.
I said, okay, this is where I'm going. I had no idea what that meant or how much it cost. I didn't know any of that.
Right.
So lo and behold, the good Lord made it so that I was able to go to Hampton. And I always say that, I have been blessed to I had a really great education in Halifax. I was able to go on to Virginia Commonwealth University to receive both my master's and my doctorate degree. But I always say that I was really educated at Hampton. Hampton was so core to developing who I am as a person and gave me so much confidence in myself and in my community that I think that had it not been for Hampton University, I would not be where I am today.
That's outstanding.
And a part of what HBCUs do is they build leadership within their students. They build service-oriented individuals within their students. So when I got out of college, I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to serve my community in a way that would make a difference. So lo and behold, I got into politics. which was crazy. I started working on campaigns at the time. Doug Wilder
Oh yeah.
was running for governor, the first Black governor ever, and the first Black elected governor. And it was such a historic time. And I was just coming out of college, and it was, I was looking for something to do. So I started working on his campaign, started meeting folks, and started getting more and more involved. And as a result of that relationship or that time, I worked with Mark Warner, who is now Senator Mark Warner. I worked with him on the campaign, and then he brought me on his staff as governor. Wow. I left his staff and went to work on Tim Kaine's campaign. And when Tim Kaine won, he also brought me on. He hired me as his Deputy Secretary of Education over higher ed.
Wow.
When Terry McAuliffe was running, he actually hired Ann Holton to serve as his Secretary of Education. And she hired me to be her Deputy Secretary of Education over higher ed.
Yeah.
She when she left the administration to join Tim on the campaign with Hillary, Governor McAuliffe appointed me as secretary. And so I filled out that term, like 2.5 years.
Wow.
As Secretary of of Education in Virginia, which was probably one of the most profound opportunities that I've had in my career. And I often wish I could go back and say, now that I know, I want to do it all over again, because there's so much more I can do to help kids.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But then, this opportunity came up, and this is, the miracle. This is, God's divine intervention. When President Biden won the campaign, I had a lot of my friends, particularly in political circles, to reach out to me and say, Dietra, you really do need to apply for a job in the Biden administration. You should join the Biden administration. And I said to them, the only job I would want in the Biden administration is executive director of the White House Initiative on HBCUs.
That's the one.
And they kept saying, well, you got to apply. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to apply. Don't worry, I'm going to apply. I never applied because Kamala Harris is a HBCU grad. And so I was like, yeah. I know she's got her person like waiting in the wing to fill this position.
Sure.
So I never applied. I had people were calling over and said, no, she's applying. She's applied. They could never find my resume or anything because I never applied, because I just assumed like it's a done deal.
Right. Wow.
That, and then I also, to be perfectly honest with you, checked the salary, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want that anyway.
Yeah, sure.
And so like 6 months later, Ann Holton, the White House called Ann Holton on a candidate, another candidate who had been applying for something in the White House. And after she gave that recommendation, she asked if this job had been filled, and they said no, they couldn't find the right person. So she at that time said, well, I have the right person, Dr. Trent. She would be perfect for this job. So they called me and asked me if I would be interested. And yeah, and so that's how it all happened, like 6 months later.
Wow.
Yeah, after all the vetting and everything. But
so Dr. Worster, that's the key. Don't apply for anything.
Yeah. Don't apply. Don't apply at all.
So,
but also submit to the will of God.
Sure.
Yeah.
When you submit to his will, he will just direct you. That's all I can say.
Love it. What a great story.
Can you talk to us more about what your current position entails? So what exactly do you do?
So HBCUs, as you all know, is historically Black colleges and universities. They were established in late 1800s after the Civil War to make sure that that the country had a way of educating former slaves and their descendants. And so these schools were established to educate slaves, mostly to teach. They were mostly teachers' colleges, right? So they were trying to teach former slaves how to teach descendants on how to read and write or whatever. The first school that the oldest HBCU today was established in 1837. It's Cheney University. That was 28 years before the end of slavery.
Wow.
That was before it was legal for Blacks to even vote. But when you look at the history of all of our HBCUs, there's so much history there. And most of them, for the most part, were former um, mansions or former mansions where slave owners lived. But it's historically, but back to what I do, these are schools that have not been well invested in or valued over the years. So over 100 and almost 180 years now in existence, you know, we have not supported the students, we have not supported the schools. And so my job is to make sure from a federal government's perspective that I am opening up these doors of opportunity for HBCUs to participate in federally sponsored programs.
Wow.
This administration by far has been the most generous in its investments in HBCUs. And so far over 16 billion now.
$16 billion from the Biden-Harris administration.
Over the last 3.5 years now, right? But that's a lot, but it's not nearly enough. When we look at the research and development across federal government and what they spend on R&D and higher education, it is, I think this year is probably going to be closer to like $46 billion.
Wow.
Of that amount, all 101 HBCUs still get less than 1% combined.
And
so
your
less
job,
than 1%. So we're talking about these schools in R&D get like $500 million combined. You have schools like Johns Hopkins who get like $2 and $3 billion by itself, billion. And people say, okay, but that's Johns Hopkins. They're like one of the best research universities in the country. And my response to that is that's because we have created that. We have made them that way. We have invested in them that way. We have not invested in our HBCUs that way. Had we invested in our HBCUs in a similar way, then we would be some of the best in the country, right? When a university gets a grant from the federal government, they are allowed to keep anywhere from 20, 30, sometimes 50% of that grant for overhead cost.
Wow.
If you're talking about $2 billion investment in federal government, you can buy the best researchers, the best research facilities, the best instrument, the best of everything. You know, but when you're talking about, you know, 500 million divided by 101, you get, you know, I don't know, books. I don't know.
Man, so your job is to make those connections. You're like an ambassador.
Right. So my job is to work with our 37 federal agencies and work with our HBCUs and say, like, you know, for instance, Morgan State has a lot of great research in AI. They do a lot of, they have one of the best engineering schools in the country. So I try to work with our federal agencies and say, you know, you should look at Morgan State or not look at Morgan State, because that's not the way it works, but it is me knowing what, you know, let's say the Department of Energy is going to put out for a proposal. And then I would make sure that Morgan knows that this proposal is out and this looks like something that you should have. So it really is, it's more about targeting and making sure that our HBCUs are aware of the opportunities. And that's another reason why we've been able to increase a lot of the funding through this administration. And the 16 billion wasn't just R&D. The 16 billion was, you know, money for Pell students.
Sure.
It was financial aid. It was also for veterans, the GI Bill for veterans who go to HBCUs. There was some grants and money in there, some research money in there. There's also some programs. So a large part of that, or a significant portion of that money was um, Title III, which is funding that HBCUs and other MSI universities receive. But a lot of it also, the bulk of it also was the CARES money from COVID. So
Sure.
they got like $7 billion.
That's outstanding.
Dietra, working in the White House, I think telling people that, like, it must be a mix, one, I think, of awe, which is how that's my reaction, is that I think it's amazing, but also people might think what a bureaucratic situation that might be. So what surprised you both positively about working in the White House? What has been a challenge?
I would say that the one thing that surprised me about working in the White House, and I know that this is only probably only true for this administration,
Mm.
and that is how open they are and how inviting they are of my ideas and my participation. I have never walked in there and felt like I was a visitor.
Mm.
They ask my opinion on many things. They bring me to the table on a lot of stuff. So, a part of that, I worked in, when I first got out of school, like I mentioned, I worked in, you know, governor's offices, especially initially getting out of school. And even after, even to some extent, like being Secretary of Education, and being in rooms where it is traditionally all older white men,
Mhm.
and the feeling of not being a part of being there, but not necessarily being seen or recognized as who you are, right?
Sure.
And trying to balance do I come across as, do I let it go, or do I come across as, the angry Black woman?
Mm.
And it's a dance. It's a real dance. And this White House, that has never happened to me. It has always
Wow.
been, get with Dr. Trent. What does Dr. Trent say? Ask Dr. Trent. It is always, so that to me has been really amazing, because I've never experienced that before.
Yeah, and that's
It's
at the highest level you can get.
That's great.
right,
That's great.
right. And it also says a lot about the leadership, right? It also says a lot about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is one of those people, is an individual who just loves people. He loves great ideas. He loves, that his energy comes from being around people and getting great and new ideas.
Yeah.
So that's been the most amazing thing about this White House. I think the on the flip side of that is that they are including me in everything.
Yeah.
So
No
sometimes I'm
pressure.
just like, can I just get some work done? Like, can you just let me do my job? But it's a wonderful problem to have.
Love it.
It's an
Yes.
absolute wonderful problem to have.
I love it. Dietra, I've been one of the coolest, kind of give a little background over here. When I was a principal, one of my favorite recruiting trips to try to recruit new teachers was to Virginia State University. It was outstanding. We walk in, we have, it was a whole education recruiting fair. The scholars were so in their element with music, with art, with intellectual conversations, with community. It was the first time I had been, I spent a week there, spent like 3 or 4 days there. And so I was really engulfed in the culture of Virginia State University. And it was quite fantastic. And every time I would have a conversation with a scholar, it was always about why HBCU and not, or why Virginia State and not William and Mary? Why Virginia State and not VCU? I was always having these conversations. It was very interesting to me. And the conversation was about community and culture. and an opportunity to be surrounded with supports that was kind of like families. They were like, that's not my
Right.
professor, that's my auntie.
Right.
That's
Right.
that's right. That's not my professor. That's
Right.
my uncle. That's my cousin. And it was
Right.
like, I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. But then I go to the recruit. Now I'm going to take a little change, right? Now I go to the recruitment fair and I'm trying to recruit new educators. And I'm like, hey, you want to be a teacher? You want to? Nope. 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 Don't want to do it. So I spent a week there. I think I got one applicant, one candidate. So this so much of what Eric and I do is talking about education. So here and educators and classroom teachers, and we're looking at the Great Resignation. What have you learned that HBCUs in particular are doing to continue on that tradition of educating our educators and supporting our community members through this beautiful gift of education but people aren't running to, they're running away from. So I'm just curious if that's come into your purview at all.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, there's new research out there that show that teachers that are trained on HBCU campuses, regardless of race, have a lot more success with high poverty minority students than those who have not. So it doesn't matter the race or the gender if you've been trained on an HBCU campus. A part of that is because of what you said when you got there. They received that nurture. They received that support. It is their family, right? And they know they have people who have their back. So when they go into the classroom, that's the kind of energy and spirit that they take to students who are in high poverty schools. But the other piece of that is you're absolutely right. We are seeing a lot of our teachers, anytime, I think when I was secretary and when we were during McCullough's administration, we tried very hard to restore dignity for our teachers. I think we were able to give them I don't know, 2, maybe 3 raises during our time. And really, I took time to go around to schools and just listen to teachers.
Sure.
A part of that is because, I come from a long line of teachers, and the way that we treat teachers today, in my mind, is embarrassing. We went to China. We know that is not the case there. We know that education is top, and it is so competitive, right? So it's competitive in every aspect, whether it's from the students or from the faculty or the teacher, right?
And socially.
Right. We saw one of the things that I think was so amazing there is when we went to you remember we went to that pre-K school and it had the first thing you saw was my first school in English and everything. And as you go up the steps, they have all of their values that are written out in English and in Chinese. So they're teaching their kids from day one English, they're teaching their kids from day one math. There's such a different value that they place on education than we do in America. And we should be absolutely ashamed of how we treat our teachers today. And so, of course, there's an outflux of from the profession.
Right.
How do we fix that, Dietra?
How do we fix it?
How do we alter that trajectory?
We have to pay them.
Yeah.
We have to pay them better. We have to honor them more. We have to we got to support them. We put a lot of money into education, but I wonder very often if we could use that money and redirect it, not spend more money, but redirect it in a way that we can put more support in our classrooms. So that our teachers are not fighting that battle by themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
would agree.
they have mental health challenges, mental health issues. Teachers are burned out. Like it is a crisis.
Yeah.
I still tell people today, I say the number one national security issue that we have today is who's going to be teaching our kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
We
I
got to
agree.
think about this. Who
Yep.
is going to be in those classrooms teaching our kids?
Yeah.
Yep.
That is critical.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It is
I agree.
critical to us as a nation. We will die if we do not, like, literally die if we
It's
do
like
not
the
have people, right?
democracy is on the fringes. Like, I mean,
No, it is no joke.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
is no joke. You think about who you want in the front of your classroom to teach your child,
Yeah.
and who's going to be doing that. If we do not pay attention to this today, we are going to pay, and we're starting to pay now.
Oh, absolutely.
But we're going to pay. And I mean, like I said, it is, in my mind, it is the greatest national security risk that we are facing today.
Yeah.
Yes. If we want our nation to maintain any kind of prominence,
Right.
we
Right.
can't have unlicensed individuals in the majority of our classrooms. And
Right.
we're seeing more of that happening, taking place in
Right.
nation.
Yeah.
And,
So
and we can't
100%.
get rid of the Department of Education.
No,
We
no,
need
not at all.
somebody whose eyes are on this at all times. We may not always agree with what they're doing. It is bureaucracy, and it beats me in the face every single day.
Mm.
But at the end of the day, we need somebody who has their eyes on our classrooms every day and have the best interest of every last student that they work for every single day. And that's what the Department of Education does.
For all of our educators listening right now, what are some words of advice you might have for them?
I think if I could say one thing, it would be, we see you, we hear you, we appreciate you. We are working for you. You are not alone. You are the most valuable, the most important individuals to our country, and don't allow the noise to distract you from your calling. Teachers are there not to make money. They're there because they have a calling on their lives, and just continue to do what you do and do it to the best of you can. And you're making a difference. You may not always see it every day, but I can assure you that you are touching the lives of your students in ways that you may not ever know.
Love
Absolutely.
it.
That's what I would say to them.
Awesome.
Thanks, Dietra.
Dr.
All right.
Dietra Trent, fellow traveler, fellow educator, future Secretary of Education in the universe. I love it. I love it. Awesome. Awesome. Eric, if you haven't done a recruiting trip to Virginia State or Hampton, brother, you got to go. You got to go. You know what I mean? Shame on you for not going, Dr.
That's
Worcester.
right.
You better go.
Thank you,
That's
Nathaniel, for that. Appreciate that.
I can
All
make
right,
that
Dietra,
happen
thank
for
you so much. We really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
guys. Appreciate
care.
you guys. Great seeing you.
Great
All
seeing you. Thanks for being a guest. Awesome.